Well, I think energy security is obviously fundamental for us. We try to find a balance between energy security, economic competitiveness, and environmental sustainability. That's really the three key dimensions that we try and strike a balance between. So, energy security for a country like Singapore, because we import a lot of our energy. In fact, 90% in terms of our electricity generation, 85 to 90% is by gas, and gas is entirely imported. So our challenge is really finding different ways to diversify our sources, both geographic and in terms of fuel types, in order to create a stronger base for our energy security. So the key steps we have taken, first in terms of gas, is really the building of our LNG terminal, the first LNG terminal, which came into operation last year in May. What that does is, because hitherto we have relied predominantly on piped natural gas, which is from our immediate neighborhood. With liquefied natural gas, we are now able to import from further afield and all over the world, really, where there are gas supplies available. And that gives us a significant degree of freedom in terms of geographic sources, and also then in terms of possible contracts, pricing structures, and so on. That terminal that we have operating on Jurong Island now has the potential to be expanded significantly. And we've also announced the plans to develop a second terminal on the eastern side of Singapore. And that's really part of our longer term strategic planning for energy security. The other dimension in it really is in terms of other sources. We are fairly limited in terms of alternative energy sources that we can explore. But solar is one of the more promising areas, and that's an area where we have taken some very deliberate steps in terms of increasing the potential for solar energy supply into our system, so raising the limits and removing certain thresholds, and more importantly, just facilitating more opportunities for people to try out different solutions. So we have microgrid in Pulau Ubin, which allows for certain types of experimentation, and we have other, with HDB, the Housing Development Board, we are working on different types of pilots, and I think these give us different opportunities to see how alternative energy sources can be incorporated in our system. And the last thing I would say is part of energy security is also being energy efficient. You still need to be smart and effective and efficient in the way you use your energy as well. So that is where I think, first in terms of energy pricing, we don't subsidize our electricity, for example. So what that does is it communicates very clearly through the price signal the true cost of energy, and you work out your decisions in terms of how much you want to consume and the factor decisions you make. And at the same time, we're also promoting energy efficiency from the point of view of whether it's a business, in terms of buildings, in terms of operating equipment, and even for households in terms of energy consumption. And that's where information availability, in terms of appliances which are more efficient, also information that can work to give them a better sense of how they can change their consumption profile to optimize their energy bill. I think the key thing for us is ensuring competitiveness in the market. We want to ensure that in every part of the value chain for energy in Singapore, we engender as much competition as we can, because that is probably one of the strongest ways of ensuring that we have an efficient and robust industry in the provision of energy sources for Singapore. So it starts with something like our fuel supply, gas. And so today we have pipe gas, and we've got one supplier of LNG coming to Singapore, which is BG. And in June this year, we just announced a new request for proposal to extend this LNG supply to the next tranche. And we're running it as a competitive process. And our intention really is to continue to embark on consecutive competitive processes in order to bring in new players into our market, in order to give our consumers choice and to create more diversity in the way such gas and fuel enters the Singapore market. So that's at the gas level. If you look at electricity supply, we have got several generating companies today, and they then create a very competitive market in terms of selling electricity into the Singapore system. And on the demand side, we have significantly opened up the opportunities for consumers, and specifically larger consumers, which means mainly businesses, but also some maybe larger residential areas and town councils and so on, who can then now start to contract because they become part of the contestable market. They can contract with different energy suppliers, electricity suppliers for their own needs. So that gives them choice and options in terms of how they want to structure their consumption and the contracts that go with the consumption. The other key dimension in this is capacity building, because obviously we have a sector which needs good people to continue to be involved, and that's also part of ensuring that we have a vibrant and compelling industry with a range of opportunities from a career point of view, from an investment point of view, and a business point of view. So that's where we have, we have a very targeted effort to ensure that we continue to attract talent into the energy sector in Singapore. This can be in the renewable sector, it can be in the more traditional energy sectors, it can also be in the area of regulation and various other aspects. Because the energy ecosystem also includes, financing services, legal services that support it, and various other technical support services. So one of the key things we have done here is really, launching this energy sector scholarships in order to attract young people to take up careers in this field. And this is something that is being done jointly with the industry, because the industry is where they can provide the career path, and the individuals can see for themselves what sort of pathway lies ahead of them, and they can make their judgment. I think the most important point in this is really to signal to a younger generation of Singaporeans there's an interesting range of possibilities in the sector. It can be, as I've said, in very diverse areas, and all of them are quite compelling. Part of our larger capacity building efforts in the energy sector is really also engendering thought leadership and creating an environment where we're not just talking about issues that we deal with today, but also thinking about some of the challenges in the energy space that lie ahead for countries and for businesses alike. So SIU is a very interesting platform in that regard. I think one of the defining features of the Singapore International Energy Week is that it is in Asia. And Asia is where you have significant global growth today and for the foreseeable future. And that growth is going to drive energy demand, and therefore the quest for energy solutions, both conventional solutions but also alternative solutions. So I think that is going to be one of the main value propositions of our International Energy Week. We are in Asia, where the center of gravity in terms of global growth, and that's going to create its own impetus in terms of looking for new and different energy solutions. The other element of SIU is, of course, that it brings together government leaders. So we have various ministers from regional countries, brings policymakers, so officials in the energy sectors from the regional and other economies, and many come from further afield, and also business leaders and academics and researchers in the space. So it creates a very good platform to challenge each other and look at ideas from different perspectives. And in that regard, I think these sort of diverse perspectives, in one platform, creates a very useful opportunity for all the parties involved, whether you're from the business or from the government sector. I think the last point I would make about SIU is that it also, although we say it's a Singapore International Energy Week, it is actually composed of a variety of subcomponent activities. And they straddle, whether you're talking about the renewable sector, whether you're talking about the oil and gas sector, and also some of the supporting areas like financing and infrastructure type activities, and so on. So we have different fora that come together to make what is SIU. We also have a segment with the youth. So what I think is good about that is everyone has something in you, and if you have a particular question or a particular issue in mind, you're probably going to find a forum with appropriate business and government representation where you can engage to try and further your thinking on that.